I'm joined this week by Sonia Gibson Rankin, Associate Dean at the University College at UNM and a Senior Lecturer in Africana Studies. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And you are also President of the New Mexico Black Lawyers Association.
Yes.
We have another legal professional also, Leon Howard, an attorney and co-chair of the State Bar of New Mexico's Committee on Diversity. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, thank you.
I want to start with some personal reflections from both of you. It's been a really difficult couple of weeks, really hard on a lot of people around the country as they have seen or watched these videos of two men dying at the hands of police and thinking about what that means for them in their own community. What's on your mind today, Sonia?
You know, that's really a good way to kind of think about it. You know, last week just got heavier and heavier as each day unfurled, as the new reports came out, and it got to where it was almost really hard to think about our neighbors and friends and community as the things they've always been. You know, you start looking at people and wondering, do you feel what I'm feeling? Are you impacted the way I am? Are you talking to your children differently? Are you holding them differently? Are you warning them and encouraging them to be aware and to beware of their surroundings and spaces the way I have to? So really, that's something that's been really kind of heavy on my heart. And then, but the end of the week, what I really felt was, what are we going to do about it? That's what I really started to feel myself drawn towards. Is it's heavy, it's hard to unpack, but what can we do about it? So that's kind of really where I felt myself going.
Leon, this is certainly not the first time that we've had a high-profile case of a black man being killed by the police. What's on your mind this week?
What's on my mind is the divide that seems to be further driven between, you know, the two sides and this us versus them mentality. And I think last week, looking at the reactions of different communities, it really became clear to me that America is in a place where there's this line, and there's definitely two sides, and it's hard for us to have conversations because when you approach one side with a different point of view, people immediately tune you out. And the second thing that I've heard a lot of is, you know, being a black parent and listening to black parents in the community and in the nation at large is, how do we teach our kids about these issues? How do we talk to our kids about encounters with law enforcement? And being a legal professional and dealing with police officers every day in my line of work, I don't have an answer for that. Because on one hand, you do want to protect your children and make sure that they're aware of the issues that are going on, and on the other hand, you don't want to raise your children by fear.
Mm-hmm.
Are you thinking that as well? How are you talking to your kids right now?
No, I think that's absolutely true. You know, I tend to be I double down. Kids in the house, everybody settle down. And my husband is really like, they can't be afraid. If they're afraid, then they can't respond appropriately. They can't make the right decision. They have to be taught that they are to be respectful, but they should expect to be respected. And if you're afraid in that process, you're not going to make your best sound judgment. So I'm learning to talk a little bit differently, right? And that's probably the problem with our legal training. I joke with students, I'll tell them all of their rights. I'll say, now, should you do that on the ground? Probably not. You're gonna have to realize you absolutely have the legal right to say and do this. These are the consequences, whether legal or illegal, which might happen because of you exercising your legal right. I don't tell them what to do. I tell my children what I would like for them to do. Come home so we can fight about it and argue about it later. Get yourself to where you're in a position that we can unpack this, but it's hard to have to teach my children how to de-escalate a situation, right? And that's what's become really, really problematic, is that we have so many citizens who are being expected to de-escalate something that they haven't been trained in how to do. I think about the woman who was driving through northern New Mexico and how she, if you watch the video, she was trying to de-escalate her interaction with the law enforcement, with her children in the car.
This was the shooting in Taos where an officer shot
Correct.
into the car. Mhm.
Correct. And that really bothered me because the average citizen, not Leanne and I, have not been trained in how to talk to someone. How do you get the situation back in control? And you know, whether it's Eric Garner in New York City or it's the gentleman in Minnesota or whatever else is going on, their work to attempt to de-escalate, and how even at their untrained efforts were met in such a tragic way. And it's hard to put that on the citizens. And it's hard because our law enforcement are so under-resourced in so many different spaces. Where do we really get the conversation to ensure that they're getting the kind of training, the kind of conversations, the kind of discussions on bias and implicit bias, and how do they respond in moments of fear? How do they respond in times when they can feel their blood pressure going up very quickly and concerns spiking in their space, which they should in many instances, but not every instance? How do we come to a safe place in that one instance?
Leon, we often talk about how New Mexico is different. We're a majority state, but there's a lot more Latino folks in New Mexico. The African American population is pretty small, but we know nationally that African Americans are in the justice system, in prisons, arrested at much higher rates compared to the population. What do you see in New Mexico of how that's playing out here? Do you see that in your work?
I absolutely see it, and with this, I can tell you that the latest consensus numbers on African Americans in our state was 3.3% African Americans in our state. And I haven't seen objective data, but I'm in the courtrooms every day. I'm in the metro courtroom a lot. I'm in our district court, every week. And the eye test tells me that every time I walk into the courtroom and I see the people in custody and I see the defendants in front of the judge, that they're in the courtroom at a much higher rate than 3.3%. And that's kind of what inspired me to get in the work that I'm doing in the bar on diversity, because I cannot walk into the courtroom and not see black defendants. And that bothers me, knowing how low the percentage of black people is in my community, because I can go through a whole day in Albuquerque and not see one black person. And then I can walk into the courtroom and see black people in handcuffs, and thinking about that just doesn't sit well with me.
Your thoughts on that, Sonia?
Particularly with raising children in our communities, the African American community in New Mexico, particularly with kids in school, is seen as the invisible minority. Oftentimes, there's not enough African American students in a school to even count it. How are they doing on standardized tests? How are their trajectories? What's happening with suspensions and probations? What the schools do, if there's not enough of a count in a school, they can't count it. It would be too identifying. However, even being an invisible minority, they're still met with all of the biases and stereotypes that are put upon the population. So we don't know if our students are being disproportionately impacted on so many different areas because there's not enough to count, but you can know that they're being met with several types of discrimination. And often for African American children in the state, they haven't even gotten a lot of the skills and training to be able to articulate what's happening to them. We're seeing this happening a lot with the millennial generation as they grapple with this thing of race. It's hard to articulate. For almost their entire their growing up years, there's been an African American president. So if that's the way one of the most powerful positions on the planet has always been, they don't know how to figure out why the court system is so disproportionately impacted, why so many places that they interact with will see this thing that doesn't look right, but supposedly they had the Civil Rights Act of 64, 65, 68 tell them we're in a different place. But it's not quite that way. They don't know how to explain that or articulate that. And so that's not just for black youth in the state, but it ends up being everyone. We haven't given our students and our children the tools to be able to unpack what's happening around them.
Do you think people as a society, we're not having that conversation of race still being an issue.
Oh yeah, no, it's hard. It is hard, it is uncomfortable. It makes us have to grapple with the things we were taught in our childhood to really sort out what's real and what's not real. That's what my family always struggled with saying, but the reality is my teacher, the person in my community, the person I made jokes with on the school bus looked differently. Why? How do I connect those two different kind of things? This is something at the university we are not shying away from. We're really putting a lot of effort and starting to have the hard conversations. In fact, in new student orientation, which is happening right now at UNM, every week the students have a full conversation on equity and inclusion offered by the Office of Equity and Inclusion at UNM that talks to 400 students a week saying, how are we going to regard one another? Now that you're a Lobo, what does it look like? We're offering a series of courses for first-year students that has a component that focuses on difficult conversations in the classroom. What do I do when my instructor says something, does something with their body language or with their words that is that could be inflammatory or is taking a bias or a stereotype into account? How do I deal with my classmate who doesn't understand my journey? Or how do I stretch myself to understand their journey and understand my role in it?
And so to piggyback off of that, in the New Mexico Bar and the work we're doing on the diversity committee is we are trying to make it mandatory for attorneys to take some continuing legal education courses on implicit bias. California is a state that's adopted that requirement, and I think it's important for our legal community to start recognizing biases that you might have, and that will reflect upon the profession in a better way, so you know when you're representing a client, things in you that you can fight against to make sure you're giving your client the best representation possible. And then in addition to that, the interdynamics within the office place, how women are treated in the workplace, how minorities are treated in the workplace. And all of those issues in the legal system, I think, can be an example for the bigger picture that we're here talking about, because obviously law enforcement is a huge part of our legal system.
And I think because of the disproportionate number of attorneys of color in the state, that 20% of the attorneys in the state of New Mexico are people of color, and 80% are not, but it's almost opposite, just not quite, maybe 60% of the clients of the state of New Mexico are people of color. So this gets to be a really hard kind of thing to unpack. And I know that the diversity committee has been working very, very diligently on this to ensure that people are prepared to understand the people they're representing, the system that they're in. And if New Mexico can lead on this the way California has, it ends up serving as a great model across the United States.
That's a great place to leave it. There's so much more to talk about. We hope to have you on again to talk about some more of these issues. Thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.